Good afternoon, everyone, especially to you, Ma'am Nika. We are the one and only Dynamics 11 active glues. Let me introduce you the parts of this group. Adabia Akmari, by Hanan Badrudin, Benesha Wanday, Christine Carl Pagaw, Shahana Ibrahim, Mumay Salilawan, Hania Kanakan, Hanan Samal, Kairos Pupa, Eunice Erica Neri, Brown S. Before anything else, let me read you our motivation. Our first motivation is that to study the eukaryotic cells and its parts and functions. Other than this is the topic that you gave to us, Mom, we also wanted to know the importance of these cells to our body. And our second motivations, and also I know that this will motivate you to listen, is that we will have an activity later. And there's a prize. Our prize will be load, and we will explain the mechanics later. So guys, here is our objectives. So first is that to gain more knowledge about eukaryotic cell and its importance. Number 2 is to give general characteristic of eukaryotes. Then number 3 is to explore the structure and morphology of eukaryotes. Number 4 is to describe the importance and functions of each organelles. And lastly is to obtain better understanding of some scientific terms. Eukaryotic are more advanced and complex cells such as those found in plants and animals. Eukaryotic are considered more advanced and complex cells because it has ability to maintain different environments or parts inside a single cell. That's why eukaryotic cell has ability to carry out different or complex reactions or metabolic reactions, which is the prokaryotic cell cannot do. In fact, it is the big reason why eukaryotic cells are much more larger than prokaryotic one. So let me start first in eukaryotic cell. What really is eukaryotic cell? Eukaryote comes from the Greek word eu, which means well, then karyot, which means kernel or nuts. It's because when scientists originally looked at the eukaryotic cell, they saw a very well formed of circular object in the center of the cell, and it looks like a nut. So that's why they call this cell a eukaryote, because it has a very well form of a nut in the center. So next is the organelles. Just like what Ma'am Nika told us in our previous lesson, that organ is a group such as the liver, the thyroid, the lungs, and many more. It's the same in organelles in eukaryotic cell. It also has a groups or parts with a specific function. So what are we waiting for? Let's explore the parts and functions of the eukaryotic cell.
Good afternoon, my name is Hania M. Kanakan, and today I'm going to discuss about the cell membrane and the cytoplasm. So the cell membrane, in 1950s, through electron microscope, the structure of and function of the cell membrane was discovered. So further investigations has been done, and then Singer and Nicholson in 1972 described the cell membrane as the fluid mosaic model. So they named it fluid mosaic model because of quasi-fluid of lipid which is present in the bilayer. So normally, the action of the fluid which plays a major role in the function in the cell membrane is called fluidity. So fluidity also plays a major function like cell growth, the cell division, and endocytosis. So I drew this diagram of a cell membrane. So this is the structure of a cell membrane. As you can see, it has its parts. the phospholipid bilayer, and the bilayer has two parts. The what's the name? The hydrophilic tail and the hydrophobic head. Non-polar in the bipolar, non-polar and the polar. Yun. So as you can see, ayan. So the polar head or hydrophilic head is exposed towards outside the cell, while the non-polar tail or hydrophobic tail facing inside the cell. Ayan. So peripheral proteins is also present at the surface of the membrane, while the integral proteins are totally buried in the membrane. So normally this is the structure of a cell membrane. So there are two types of transport of molecules in a cell. Number one is the passive transport and the active transport. So many molecules like hydrophobic molecules or polar molecules can move briefly across the membrane without any requirement of energy. This is called the passive transport. So the keyword for the passive transport is it doesn't require any energy. Okay? And then while the transport of molecules, when the transport of molecules requires an energy, it requires energy depends process in which ATP or it is called the active transport, and it follows against the concentration of reagent from lower concentration to higher concentration. So usually so the normal concentration of reagent, it is from higher concentration to lower concentration. In summary, the cell wall or cell membrane is a very complex layer that surrounds the cell. It helps with the protection, transportation, and communication within the cell. So the next one is the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is made up of two words, the cyto and the plasm. The cyto means cell, while the plasm means fluid or liquid. So cytoplasm is actually the liquid or fluid part of the cell. And I have done something a while ago. So this is the cell, and the internal part is the cytoplasm. So cytoplasm is a thick solution which is 80% water and is colorless. So the cytoplasm is made up of three parts. Number one is the cytosol. Number two is the organelles, and number three is cytoplasmic inclusion. So cytosol is actually the gel or jelly-like part which is present in the cytoplasm. Okay, then the organelles, it is nasa loob ng cell. For example is the endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, the nucleus, etc. And then cytoplasmic inclusions are non-living or non-membrane. Okay. Example of that is the pigments, nutrients, and the secretory products. So the cytoplasm contains salt, proteins, and carbohydrates, and also lipids pala. And then the proteins, carbohydrates, and the lipids are the organic molecules, while the salt is the inorganic. So cytoplasm is a highly organized structure. So in summary, the cytoplasm is a clear jelly-like substance found in cells that contains nutrients and salts and helps give the cell its shape and helps the cell move materials. And that's all.
So before I start, I just want you to know that nucleus and nucleolus is not the same. Their difference is the nucleus is the main part of the cell, while the nucleolus is part of the nucleus itself. So let's go back to our main topic, which is nucleus. Nucleus, the cell nucleus is a membrane-bound structure that contains the cell's hereditary information and controls the cell's growth and reproduction. So to further elaborate the nucleus is the command center of the eukaryotic cell and is commonly the most prominent organelle in a cell, accounting for about 10% of the cell's volume. And also, nucleus is separated from the rest of the cell or the cytoplasm by a nuclear membrane. As the nucleus regulates the integrity of genes and gene expression, it is also referred to as the control center of a cell. Next is importance of nucleus. The nucleus is considered to be one of the most important structures of eukaryotic cells, as it serves the function of information storage, retrieval, and duplication of genetic information. So to further elaborate the importance of nucleus provides functional compartmentalization inside the cell, allowing higher levels of gene regulation. In our body, the nucleus is the largest, most prominent organelle inside the cell. So take note that Ernest Rutherford discovered the nucleus of atom in 1911. So there are structures of a nucleus. The first one is the nuclear membrane. It is a double-layered structure that encloses the contents of the nucleus. The outer layer of the membrane is connected to the endoplasmic reticulum. Second is nucleoplasm. Is the gelatinous substance within the nuclear envelope, also called karyoplasm. This semi-aqueous material is similar to the cytoplasm and is composed mainly of water, with dissolved salts, enzymes, and organic molecules suspended within. Third is chromosomes. The nucleus is the organelle that houses chromosomes. Chromosomes consist of DNA, which contains heredity information and instructions for cell growth, development, and reproduction. Chromosomes are present in the form of string of DNA and histones or protein molecules called chromatin. When a cell is resting, not dividing, the chromosomes are organized into long entangled structures called chromatin. And lastly is nucleolus. The nucleolus contains nucleolar organizers, which are parts of ribosome synthesis on them. The nucleus helps synthesize ribosomes by transcribing and assembling ribosomal RNA subunits. These subunits join together to form a ribosome during protein synthesis. Last is function of nucleus. The nucleus provides a site for genetic transcription that is segregated from the location of translation from the cytoplasm, allowing levels of gene regulation that are not available to prokaryotes. So to further elaborate the function of nucleus is the nucleus provides a place for genetic transcription that is separated from the cytoplasmic region of translation, allowing for levels of gene regulation that prokaryotes do not have. And lastly is it regulates an organism's inherited features.
So, good day. I'm Upam Pyrods from Group 3. So, let's proceed to the nucleolus. So, the word wait guys, let me remind you muna, nucleolus and nucleus is not the same. So, nucleolus and nucleus have one difference. Nucleolus, it is a main part of the cell, while naman sa nucleolus, it is a part of the nucleus itself. So, let's proceed to the nucleolus. So, what is nucleolus? So, nucleolus is the most conspicuous domain in the eukaryotic cell nucleus, whose main function and ribosomal RNA. So, RNA synthesis and ribosomal biogenesis. So, a nucleolus, it is a solid spherical shape found in the nucleolus. So, some of eukaryotic organisms have a nucleus that consists of up to 4 nuclei. So, the nucleolus it displays an amplified indirect role in protein synthesis by producing ribosomes. So, ribosomes it is our cell organelles made up for RNA and proteins. They are transported to the cytoplasm, which is then attached to the endoplasmic reticulum. So, ribosome and cytoplasm, it is, I think, topic ito ng mga ka-group mates ko. So, they can discuss you perfectly na. So, let's proceed muna tayo sa nucleolus. So, the nucleolus it is a region found within the cell. So, within the cell nucleus. So, nucleolus it is the concern within producing and assembling the cell ribosomes. So, it will possesses DNA, which is direct information of proteins and enzymes in the cell. So guys, in the nucleus didn't exist. If the nucleus didn't exist, the cell wouldn't have an direction, which is inside the nucleolus. Wouldn't be able to produce ribosomes. So, let's proceed to the function of nucleolus. So, nucleolus, it is control the center of the cell. So, yung nucleolus natin, it can control the center of our cells. And the second one, it is store heredity info of NDA. And then it makes RNA and protein. So nucleolus makes an RNA and proteins, and also the ribosomes of nucleus. And we will proceed to the next reporter. Thank you.
My next topic is chromatid or chromatin. By the way, chromatid and chromatin are the same. So what is chromatin? It's a complex of DNA and proteins that forms chromosomes within the nucleus of eukaryotic cells. Also, chromatin is the term given to the complex of DNA associated with histones. So to further elaborate the chromatin, that means chromatin is the term given to the complex of DNA coupled with histones. It is a complex of DNA and proteins that forms chromosomes within the nucleus of eukaryotic cells. It is the material that makes up a chromosome that consists of DNA and protein. The major proteins in chromatin are proteins called histones. They act as packaging elements for the DNA. For example of chromatin is spermatozoa and avian red blood cells. Chromatin are like manuals in a factory to teach workers how to make the product. Next is basic unit of chromatin organization. Is the nucleosome, which comprises 147 BP of DNA wrapped around a core of histone proteins. Next is importance of chromatin. Is that it's a pretty good packing trick to get all the DNA inside the cell. Next is function of chromatin. is to efficiently package DNA into a small volume to fit into the nucleus of a cell and protect the DNA structure and sequence. So, to further elaborate the function of chromatin, it is highly condensed and wrapped around nuclear proteins in order to fit inside the nucleus. So, chromatin exists in two forms. One form called euchromatin. It is less condensed and can be transcribed. The second form, called heterochromatin, is highly condensed and typically not transcribed.
Good morning everyone. I'm reporting today is endoplasmic reticulum. What is endoplasmic reticulum? A canal-like system of membrane usually attached in nucleus network of membrane which protein and other molecules move. So what is endoplasmic reticulum? The endoplasmic reticulum is the largest membrane organelle in eukaryotic cells consisting of tubules and sheets attached in nuclear. It serves as a transportation system because it performs several important cellular functions including protein synthesis, lipid synthesis, calcium storage, and release. And we have two types of endoplasmic reticulum are rough ER with ribosomes and smooth ER without ribosomes. And ribosome, the site where protein is synthesized. What is ribosomes? Ribosome is complex molecule made of ribosomal RNA molecules and protein that form a factory for protein synthesis in cells. And like I said earlier, we have two types of endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum is involved in some protein production, protein folding, quality control, and dispatch is called rough because it is studded with ribosomes. And the last is smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Smooth ER or endoplasmic reticulum is associated with the production and metabolism of fats and steroid hormones.
Okay, let's proceed to another part so that we can learn more about eukaryotic cells. The another part is the mitochondria or mitochondrium. Everyone is familiar with this, right? Yes, mitochondria, also known as the powerhouse of the cell. Mitochondria is a membrane-bound cell organelles that generate most of the chemical energy needed to power the cell's biochemical reaction. Yes, it is a part of eukaryotic cells that give more power or energy to immediately function to our cell. Mitochondria is to produce energy, perform some particular function for the cells including cellular metabolism, the citric acid cycles, and producing heat and controlling the concentration of calcium and producing certain steroids. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the both animals and plant cells because they provide adenosine triphosphate molecules that provide energy for all the cell activities. So that's why cells that need more energy has more in mitochondria. In this video, tell us what mitochondria is. This is we call mitochondria. This one. To understand more about mitochondria, let's proceed to its functions. First functions is production of ATP. It is a molecule that cells use as source of energy. Yes. The next one is calcium homeostasis. Maintain of a constant concentration of calcium ions in as extracellular fluids. That's why the role of mitochondria in calcium homeostasis is very important, because there is a link between mitochondrial level of calcium and metabolism. Third one is the regulation of innate immunity. Innate immunity is play an important role in the mammalian immune response. Research demonstrates that mitochondria DNA activates several innate immune pathways, which contribute to the signaling platform and result in effector response. So that's why regulation of innate immunity is connected to mitochondria. The fourth function is the programmed cell death. Is this a major component of normal development preservation of tissues homeostasis? Meaning, in this view, it's discussed the central role of the mitochondria in the integration of the cell death pathway. The last function is stem cell regulation. Is the body raw materials from which all mitochondria regulate all death pathway, which are crucial to allow stem cells to preserve their genome integrity and the functionality of the differentiate progeny. Mitochondria transfer from stem cell, that's why has been demonstrated to play a significant role in rescuing injured tissues. That's why mitochondria plays an important role in our body cells.
So guys, eto na po, yung aming pa-game na icebreaker. So yung gagawin po namin is kung sino man yung maunang makapag-send ng correct answer sa GC natin, yun po yung makakakuha ng prize, which is load. So meron po kaming 5 question dito. So bawat tamang answer is makakakuha ng 20 peso na load. So just message your answer sa GC natin. So kung sino man po yung makikita namin doon na mauna mag-send ng answer, yun na po yung pipiliin namin na makakatanggap ng load. So our first question is, what organelle is responsible for protein synthesis? The second question is, what does the letter D stands for in the 11 active glutes, which is the name of our group? So just send your answer to our group chat. Bilisan nyo, baka may mauna pa sa inyo. So our third question is, give me one function of nucleus that I've mentioned. Bigay niyo yung isang function ng nucleus. So kahit saan na doon, basta yung function niya, mamili na lang kayo doon. So send nyo lang. So our fourth question is, what is the difference between nucleus and nucleolus? So kung sino yung yung mauna doon mag-send ng tamang answer, which is yung essay, kung sino yung magustuhan namin doon yung answer niya, which is yung hindi tinipid, yung may connect sa question, is yun yung makakakuha ng load. So send na and ayusin yung spelling. Our last question is, elaborate the structures of nucleus. So alam nyo na yan, basta send lang ninyo, ayusin ninyo kasi tumitingin kami sa mga spelling. So kung sino man po yung mananalo o yung mapipili naming bigyan ng load, ipipm lang po namin kayo para makuha yung number ninyo. Then yun po. Just hintayin lang po ninyo kung alam niyo yung tama kayo, hintayin lang ninyo yung pag-PM namin sa inyo. We will announce the winners din sa GC. So let's continue our topic.
Yo, my report about is Golgi apparatus. The Golgi apparatus is prepare protein and lipids molecules used for in other place inside and outside the cell. The Golgi apparatus is a cell organelle also called Golgi body or Golgi complex. The Golgi apparatus is a cell organelle that helps and package protein and lipids molecules, especially protein destinated to be exported from the cell. So, tulad siya ng Shopee, supplier tsaka receiver. Nagdi-deliver ang Golgi apparatus ng protein to the protein in another cells. Tulad siya ng Shopee, guys. There are two main of the Golgi is the cis phase. The cis phase of Golgi stock is the end of organelle where substance enter from the endoplasmic reticulum for processing, while the trans phase is where there exit in form to smaller detect the vesicles. So ang saunahan po ng Golgi apparatus is the cis phase, and the last is the trans phase. The cis phase yung parang suppliers yung owner, tapos yung trans phase naman siya na yung receiver. Siya nagre-receive niya yung protein. That's all. Thank you.
So, let's proceed to the chromosomes. So, what is chromosomes? Chromosome is a long DNA molecules with part of an all genetic materials of an organism. When the cell is ready to divide, DNA condenses into structure known as chromosomes. So, when you say chromosomes, guys, it is present in the form of strings DNA protein molecules called chromatin. So the chromatin is classified further into the heterochromatin and eukaryochromatin. So based on the function, so the heterochromatin is a highly condensed, transcriptionally inactive form mostly present adjoining to the nuclear membrane. So on the other hand, guys, euchromatin is a much less condensed organization of an chromatin. So, which is found amplified in the transcribing cells. So, chromosomes is carry inherent information in the other form, genes, which is govern all cell activity and functions. So, chromosomes, guys, it is chromosome contain up to several thousand genes arranged in the single file along double filament of DNA. So the human chromosomes, guys, it is located inside the nucleus of the cell. So the chromosome structure is in hold your genes, so that your genes is determine your traits, which is the eye color and the blood. So here's the function of chromosomes. So the number one is regulate the proteins of cells. Yes, it is regulate our proteins in these cells. And the second one is determine the gender of an individual. So chromosomes, guys, is can determine our gender. It is the male or the female. So a chromosome can determine the female if are pair of X, and and while male naman is X and Y chromosomes. So and the next is influence or determine the traits of the entire organism. Yes, chromosome can determine our traits and the entire organism. And the next is determine height and eye color. So chromosome can determine our height and our eye color. It is blue, white, and then the next is contains the genetic instruction to the control cell process. So chromosome, it is contains our genetic instruction to the control process, cell process, and contains instruction to form new cell. So the last one, guys, is the codes in chromosome determine what proteins the cell produce. So chromosome is determine the proteins, what proteins of the cell will produce. So here's the chromosomes, guys. So ito yung chromosomes. This is the chromosomes.
Chloroplast. Chloroplast is where the photosynthesis happens. A type of plastid, a round, oval, or dish-shaped body that is involved in the synthesis and storage of foodstuffs. It is green because it has a green pigment called chlorophyll. The function of those pigments is to absorb light energy for the process of photosynthesis. The main purpose of chloroplast is to make sugars that feeds the cell by the process of photosynthesis. And photosynthesis is the process of a plant taking energy from the sun and creates sugar. These are the different parts of chloroplast. First is the stroma, refers to the colorless fluid surrounding the grana within the chloroplast. In stroma, this is where the photosynthesis begins before the chemical changes. Second is the thylakoid. The word thylakoid is from the Greek word thylakos, which means pouch. It's a sheet-like membrane-bound structure that is the site of the light-dependent photosynthesis reactions in chloroplast and cyanobacteria. It is also the site that contains the chlorophyll used to absorb light and use it for a biochemical reactions. And the last one is the chloroplast envelope. It is the only permanent membrane structure of the different types of plastid. Like mitochondria, chloroplasts are also surrounded by two membranes, the outer membrane and the inner membrane. The outer membrane forms the exterior of the organelle, while the inner membrane folds to form a system interconnected disc-like sacs.
Good morning to everyone. I am Hanang Samal and I will tackle about the lysosome. So, lysosome is a membrane-bound organelle. Because it contains many enzymes that digest protein, nucleic acids, and the lipids. So, if these enzymes were released in the cytosol, they could chew up the cells. That can be lead to cells death. Lysosome also acts as a garbage disposal of the cell, that because it have a digestive enzymes that are helpful for removing waste products from the cells. So, if any organelle is damaged, then this lysosome will digest that. It can even digest the whole cell if the damages are many. Lastly, it digests worn out organelles, food particles, and viruses, so that it will be used again or repair it. So, there are 4 types of lysosome. The first one is the primary lysosome. These are a small vesicle that form from the Golgi apparatus that contains inactive digestive enzymes. The second one is the secondary lysosome. So these types of lysosome is the opposite of the primary lysosome. It contains active digestive enzymes that are capable of eliminating materials inside the lysosome into the outside. The third one is the tertiary lysosome or residual bodies. So this one is a lysosome in which only indigestive food materials have been left. Sometimes residual bodies remain inside the cells due to the failure of exocytosis and the absence of hydrolytic enzymes. Lastly is the autophagosome or autophagy. It is a Greek word that means self-eating. It is a catabolic process that delivers cytoplasmic components and organelles to the lysosome for digestion. They help in degradation of worn out, abnormal, or malfunctioning cellular components in organelles.
So let's proceed to the vacuole. So vacuole is a space within a cell that is empty of cytoplasm, lined with a membrane, and filled with fluid. So vacuole is a membrane-bound organelle. In animal cells, vacuole are generally small and help sequester waste products. In plant cells, vacuoles help maintain water balance. Sometimes, a single vacuole can take up most of the interior space of the plant cell. So, let's proceed to the functions of the vacuole. So, first is isolating materials that might be harmful or a threat to the cell. So, these are, it helps to isolate that harmful chemicals and may affect to the cell. The next one is containing waste products. So these are, it contains waste products and contains water in plant cells. So the next is containing water in plant cells. It maintains the hydrostatic in its internal or inside the cell. The next is maintaining internal hydrostatic pressure or turgor within the cell, maintaining an acidic internal pH. So which means it maintains the acid within the pH. So the next is containing small molecules. So this cell contains many molecules. The next is exporting unwanted substances from the cell. So these are bringing out the unnecessary substance that may trigger the cell. Next is allows plants to the support structures such as leaves and flowers due to the pressure of the central vacuole. So it is allowed that plants to build leaves and its flowers. The next is by increasing in size allows the germinating plant or its organs such as leaves to grow very quickly and using up mostly just water. It helps the flower to grow faster by just using water. So the last one is in seeds, stored proteins needed for germination are kept in protein bodies, which are modified vacuoles. So these are while in seeds it throws the proper proteins that are necessary for the development, and it is kept inside the protein bodies, which called modified vacuoles. So that's all. Thank you.